So what was your life like going from not being in the Marines to training, and then what was your daily life like once you were in the Marines?
It's quite a difference because boot camp is a lot different than the rest of your Marine Corps career, but that's where you start. And I mean, as a civilian, you go from going to school, you can go home, you can go out and you have drinks, you can do what you want to do at all times. And you go from there to being in a position where people watch you go to the bathroom and scream at you while you're going to the bathroom. Like, it's ridiculous. It's, at the time, it does not seem like there's any rhyme or reason to the intensity of the training, but the Marine Corps is one of the most elite fighting forces. You have to go through some stuff to deal with it. But you good, buddy? But it's, I'm trying to think. Once you get out of boot camp, though, it's a lot less strenuous. Although in my specific job, it was almost a year of additional training. So that was, a lot of it was glorified babysitting. You don't get treated like the adult that you are at any point in your military career, because they're trying to basically herd cats. Like, they're trying to be accountable for everybody. So yeah, your freedoms are very restricted. You might be under obligation at any time to drop everything you're doing and go back to base. Like, so it can be kind of rough.
Okay, so did you live on base?
I actually lived in Cape Carteret, which was between Cherry Point and Camp Lejeune. I was married at the time, and we were both stationed at the different bases, so it was quite a commute. It was like 45 minutes away.
Okay. All right. So when you say, like, you would be using, like, you could be using the bathroom and someone would be screaming at you, like, why was that?
I think in that specific example, it's about time management. Like, they're trying to fit all of this training into a small period of time, but it's also about, you're not supposed to think of yourself as an individual. I mean, I'm not saying that we're like cattle. We're definitely not like cattle, but there's a bigger picture going around you. So you can't be sitting there just like taking your time. You have to think of like everybody else that's like running in and out of this bathroom in like a minute. Like, it's crazy.
Okay. So how did your time in the Marines affect you?
I think there's definitely like positives and negatives. Like, I definitely have a lot more discipline, but I walked away with multiple disabilities. So that's definitely a drawback.
Do you mind like explaining what some of those disabilities were?
First of all, and this is a whole story, and like, I do not mind sharing it at all, but I'm just like bracing you. This is definitely a tale. I hurt my back while I was on active duty, and it wasn't like there was a particular injury or particular time where I can pinpoint it. It just started hurting from overuse, and I got over-medicated. I was prescribed something like 6 different like pain controlling medications. And on top of just like the stress of no longer being able to perform like the physical side and stuff like that, I ended up having a psychotic break and had no idea who I was for like 3 weeks. And yeah, there's definitely an aftermath of that. Like, I guess that there's a lot of things that contribute to like a mental health condition like that. So it definitely wasn't a good time. And I also have like of course the back injury, which is constant pain, unfortunately.
Okay. So like what was the reason that did you leave the military, or were you discharged?
I was medically discharged. So after I had a psychotic break, I was put through a process of just evaluation, trying to see like if it was something that happened during the military. And so I was assigned a disability percentage, and then they finally like processed me out, which, I mean, they take care of you, so that's nice.
Okay. Do you mind sharing any of like what it was like? Do you remember what happened during that break? That psychotic?
I do. It's definitely, I gotta stay here. It's an interesting experience for sure. I remember being at work and being under the assumption that everybody was plotting against me, and not just like everybody is against me, I'm having a bad day. Like I literally thought everybody was talking about me and laughing about me behind my back. And I just remember getting progressively more upset, and everybody that I was working with was like, what is going on? And I went home that night, I became catatonic. Like I just like laid down and just apparently just like stared at the wall for hours.
Get up.
I gotta sit down. And my ex-husband actually took me to the hospital, and at the hospital I stopped realizing who my ex-husband was. I started calling him a different name. I started thinking that, I'm trying to figure out a way to describe this. They say it's definitely the uncanny is how I would describe it. Like I saw people that I knew that had died, like that I'd known in my civilian life, like they came back to life and then they would disappear again, and I would be like, oh, I must have been responsible for their death. So like every unresolved like trauma I had ever experienced like came back. It was crazy.
And was that trauma, like the people you thought about, did you experience the trauma during the time that you were in Marines or before? It
was all before. Like it was all stuff that I had experienced in the past that came back. Like I had a friend who got hit by a car, and this was like a year or two before I joined, and I was under the assumption that I had been driving the car during my psychotic break, which there's not any really rhyme or reason to it, but it's like it's interesting from a psychological standpoint, I guess.